Hello, everyone. Welcome to 3 News Now. I'm Stephanie Haney. It's Thursday, January 14th. Thanks for choosing to be here for your top stories from WKYC.com and our WKYC app. I start off with breaking news out of Cleveland. The FBI has made an arrest right here in Northeast Ohio tied to the riots last week in Washington, D.C. Former Cleveland Schools employee Christine Priola, who was an occupational therapist for the Cleveland Metropolitan School District, was arrested by the FBI at her home this morning. She now faces charges of knowingly entering or remaining in a restricted building, violent entry and disorderly conduct on Capitol grounds, and unlawful activity on Capitol grounds. Now, Priola resigned from her position with CMSD last Thursday. This was only after people had identified her as being one of the people in photos and video from the Capitol riots. In her resignation letter, Priola said that she was planning to switch career paths to focus on exposing human trafficking and pedophilia. Now, we do need to point out that these are ideas linked to QAnon, the far-right conspiracy group that has been heavily associated with supporters of President Donald Trump. Priola also said she was resigning because she didn't want to take a COVID-19 vaccine in order to return to in-person school. Now, again, this resignation came after people linked her to photos that were taken of the violent mob that stormed the Capitol while Congress was working to certify the Electoral College vote results. CMSD released this statement. While CMSD deeply believes in the right of any individual to peacefully protest, as many did on the Capitol Plaza on Wednesday afternoon, the district deeply condemns the actions of those involved in the riots inside the Capitol and on the Capitol grounds. The right of peaceful protest, as protected by the First Amendment, is a foundation of our democracy. The forcible takeover and willful destruction of our government is not. And along those lines, yesterday, in an historic move, this is the first time this has ever happened, that a sitting president has been impeached twice. President Donald Trump was impeached by the House of Representatives, and this time there was bipartisan support. 10 Republicans joined House Democrats to impeach President Donald Trump on the charge of inciting an insurrection, and one of those people, Ohio Representative Anthony Gonzalez. Here's what Representative Gonzalez said. The President of the United States helped organize and incite a mob that attacked the United States Congress in an attempt to prevent us from completing our solemn duties as prescribed by the Constitution. In doing so, 5 people have died, including a Capitol police officer. Many more have been injured, and our democracy has been shaken. During the attack itself, the president abandoned his post while many members asked for help, thus further endangering all present. These are fundamental threats not just to people's lives, but to the very foundation of our republic. When I consider the full scope of events leading up to January 6th, including the president's lack of response as the United States Capitol was under attack, I am compelled to support impeachment. That was Representative Gonzalez's statement, who represents a district here in Ohio for the U.S. House of Representatives. And he did join 10 other Republicans in voting to impeach the president. Now remember, impeachment of a president is very similar to being charged with a crime. It doesn't mean that a person is guilty, but it does mean that that single article of impeachment will now be set to the U.S. Senate, where a trial will take place. Now, there were reports from multiple outlets that Senator Mitch McConnell supported the Democrats' effort to impeach the president and some Republicans. However, he later came out and said that he has not yet made up his mind. And in terms of timing, it seems that Senator McConnell will not begin the process of the trial in the Senate until potentially Inauguration Day of President-elect Joe Biden, and possibly after that day. So Joe Biden has made it known that it's his hope that the Senate will be able to both carry out a trial and maybe split the sessions and also move forward with business like confirming his cabinet nominations and moving forward with continued stimulus relief for Americans. We will have to see how that plays out. Now, Republican Representative Anthony Gonzalez for Ohio is the only Republican from Ohio who voted to impeach President Trump. Every Democrat in the U.S. House of Representatives for Ohio did vote to impeach President Donald Trump, and no other Republicans did. And we've got that full breakdown if you want to take a look at that on WKYC.com. Here's more news about what's happening in our Cleveland area, the Cleveland City Council specifically. Our 3 News investigative reporter Mark Naymik has discovered that the FBI is investigating longtime Cleveland council member Ken Johnson and 2 others with ties to City Hall. This is according to federal subpoenas obtained by 3 News. Now, according to this reporting, the FBI appears to be seeking information related to 2 issues. One involving Johnson using his Cleveland City Council expenses dating back years, and another involving federal money distributed to the city of the Buckeye Share from the city to the Buckeye Share Squaker Development Corporation. Now, this was a nonprofit, no longer in existence, but a nonprofit aiming at redeveloping the Buckeye and Shaker Square neighborhoods. That nonprofit was closed down after it failed to produce audits to the city to outline how it was utilizing federal funds that had been given to it. Now, the subpoenas seek city records on 2 others, Garnell Jameson, who is Johnson's council aide and former employee of the nonprofit, and Ozell Dobbins, a former Cleveland commissioner and employee. Mark Naymik, now an investigator for 3 News, used to be a columnist for Cleveland.com, and in his previous reporting for Cleveland.com, he detailed how Johnson used his expense account and showed more than $160,000 in reimbursements, but very little documentation as to what those reimbursements were required for. Also in his reporting, the Buckeye nonprofit could not account for some federal money that was earmarked to it by Johnson, and at least one Johnson family member worked at the nonprofit, as did Jameson and Dobbins, who are also subject to these FBI subpoenas. Now, Johnson, in a brief phone call, said that he was unaware of the FBI investigation and subpoenas, and at this point, neither he nor the other 2 people involved have been charged. Now, let's take a look at the latest update from Governor Mike DeWine's press conference today about COVID-19 in the state of Ohio. The state of Ohio is preparing to start giving COVID-19 vaccines to Ohioans who are 80 years and older. That's next week. That's the start of phase 1B. So, DeWine has said that there will be a tool online for people to see where they can get the vaccine. Next week, there will be about 750 provider locations across the state and about 100,000 vaccines available. So starting on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, depending on delivery date of the vaccines, these vaccines will be available for those people 80 and in the 80-year-old age range here in Ohio. Now, Friday morning, tomorrow at 8 a.m., the state is launching a tool on coronavirus.ohio.gov where you can select your county or your zip code and see a list of providers where you can get vaccine doses. Here's what DeWine said. As Ohio begins to receive bigger allotments of vaccines, we'll move to have larger vaccination sites in addition to individual vaccination sites. So again, that'll be at coronavirus.ohio.gov, and of course, we will have that tool linked for you on WKYC.com. Now, let's talk about the latest numbers for COVID-19 here in the U.S. and globally. It's a pretty major day here in the U.S. in terms of cases as well as deaths. In the U.S., there have been more than 3 million new COVID-19 cases reported in the first 13 days of the year. Right now, that total number from Johns Hopkins University is at 23,154,603. And the total number of deaths in the U.S. is now at 386,194. Now, when we look at these in the afternoon from 2:30 p.m. one day to 2:30 p.m. the next day, in the past 24 hours, there have been 4,074 new deaths. Just to let you know, we talk about these in terms of percentages each day, but the U.S. reported its highest number of COVID-19 deaths in one day. That was on Tuesday. 4,327. That's according to Johns Hopkins University. The 5 highest daily tallies for new infections and new deaths have all occurred in 2021, and we are only 14 days in to 2021. Over the past week, the U.S. has averaged more than 3,300 deaths every day. That's a jump of more than 217% from mid-November. So just to give you an idea of where we're at right now and how important it is to really control the spread and the deaths related to COVID-19. Now, we've got 4% of the global population, but the number of cases, the percentage of cases and the percentage of deaths continues to increase. We have 25% of the global COVID-19 cases and 19.5% of the global COVID-19 deaths. Both of those numbers are up 1/10 of a percentage point from yesterday. This is something that we're seeing consistently. So I know in a single day when we talk about being up 1/10 of a percentage point, that might not seem like much, but over 10 days, that's a full percentage point, and this is something that we are seeing consistently happen. The total number of global cases right now is at 92,680,850, and the total number of global deaths is now at 1,985,118. Now, we do know that most of the people who contract COVID-19 do recover, and that is the case for Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski. He has returned to Berea today after being out with COVID-19. He's been out for 10 days after testing positive and missing Cleveland's playoff game against the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday. So that means for Kevin Stefanski, he'll make his playoff debut as a head coach on Sunday when the Browns play the defending Super Bowl champions, the Kansas City Chiefs. And he will be joined by wide receiver KhaDarel Hodge, who just today was activated from the COVID-19 reserve list. Hodge also missed the 48-37 victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers in the AFC wildcard round on Sunday. Now, Hodge is the third player to be activated from the COVID-19 list in the past 2 days. Yesterday, cornerbacks Denzel Ward and Kevin Johnson were activated from the COVID list, and they also missed the Pittsburgh victory last Sunday. So all of those people definitely will be very glad to return to the field for the AFC divisional round when the Browns take on the Kansas City Chiefs right around 3 p.m. on Sunday. Somebody who won't be there, wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. Of course, he's been out since October because of an ACL injury, but he tweeted today in support of his team. He said, "Don't be surprised this weekend when they win. Just throwing it out there." Now, a lot of people thinking that's maybe a bold claim. The Cleveland Browns are a 10-point underdog, but I don't think anybody expected the Browns to be up 28-0 in the first quarter against the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday. So anything could happen. Obviously, we're just going to have to see how it plays out. But Odell Beckham Jr., very confident in his team. And by the way, a lot of people talking about the fact that OBJ hasn't been with the team this season. The last we've heard from General Manager Andrew Berry is that he doesn't believe there's any reason to think that OBJ's future with the team will have any difference made to it for the fact that he has not been playing with the team while they've been doing so very well this season. One more thing to let you know before we go. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has just received the largest archival gift it's ever been given. This is over 100,000 photos from photographer Baron Wolman, who is an iconic rock and roll photographer, one of the most prominent rock and roll photographers that there have been. And this archival gift now in the Rock Hall includes many never or rarely before seen photos, including photos of Jimi Hendrix, B.B. King, Tina Turner, Keith Richards. Over 100,000 photos, so obviously that's a very rich collection. And Wolman passed away in November of 2020. He's an Ohio native, by the way. Before passing, he said, "I could not have asked for a more perfect home," referring to his photos going to the Rock Hall. And he said, "Perfect too, because the archive returns to the Buckeye State as I was born and grew up in Columbus." And the timing couldn't be better because the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is reopening to the public on Monday, on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, after being closed for quite some time while they got their health and safety precautions in place. So people will be able to check that out, and there will be tickets available for that. You can check out all that information on WKYC.com and our WKYC app. That's it for your 3 News Now update for Thursday, January 14th. I will see you next up on What's New at 5 p.m. with your Clicking in Cleveland stories. Also, we'll be highlighting there your pets. If there are any pets of yours who are demanding your attention while you're working from home, we want you to send us those photos and those videos. You can do it through the WKYC app. You can also text photos to 216-344-3300. Everyone, enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Stay safe and be well. I'm Stephanie Haney.